Wait for the data to be sent. We wait for the questions to be answered. We wait for the internet to say, yes, you are online. And you know me, I got to see it. I know there's a delay. I know you guys, Ron, you're already here. I got to see it, though, because I don't have. Yes, I have seen it. I have seen it. Beautiful. I have seen it, and it is good. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good evening to everyone where it's an evening time zone. I skipped around a little bit. Sorry about that. I skipped around a little bit. And good morning to all my fellow West Coasters. I hope you're doing great in this lovely morning. And also to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand, how's the future? Fix climate change for the rest of us, please. We're counting on you. Climate change. Can you? No pressure. All right. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale because of the pandemic. For all of your tea needs, please do reach out to them. Support an amazing independent tea shop run by Lefty and friend of the show, Jeffrey. We might be getting a Ron tea soon. We haven't been able to get on the horn with that yet, but or get on the horn. What does that even mean? I don't know. But anyway, we're working on that. Once that becomes available, you guys will be the first to know. Our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. Trendy name makes topical pain oil for your body that works miracles. Check it out. It has helped my neck immensely. And you can learn more about it at triageoil.com. All right. And shout out to Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the articles and vids from your favorite outlets and streamers and content creators. I'm there. The platform gets updated twice a day. To learn more and to subscribe to everything they got going on and to join their Discord community. They got a cool Discord community going on. Check it out over at independentleft.media. And also yours truly, me, did their theme song. All right. Without further ado, and that's independentleft.media. Without further ado, my guest today is one of my favorite accounts on all of Twitter. He's been publishing articles. He's been streaming over on the Twitch, and he's been getting bumps from Dr. Cornell West. He is Nick, the progressive martial artist, a.k.a. the Socialist MMA on Twitter. Make sure you're following that account. Nick, what's up, buddy? Welcome back to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Ron? I'm glad to be back. I try to be on my best behavior. A lot of people are kind of shy by me on, but you like to take a lot of risks, so I appreciate you, brother.
Dude, I love last time you were on. We talked a lot of politics, and we also talked like working out tips and health, and I mean that was a blast, man. Yeah, I love having you. Why would anyone be nervous about having you on?
A lot of people they got a lot of misconceptions about me going on. I like to keep it wholesome.
That's their loss.
I'm honest though. I'm honest though. When it comes to my politics, I'm a little bit unhinged. I'm gonna be honest when it comes to that. But I tell the truth, right? So I'm like honestly unhinged. So I understand their point of view. But we did have fun today. We did have fun.
Well, you're welcome here, buddy, and good to have you. We got some headlines to go through, and then we're going to talk about some really exciting projects that you got coming up that I'm real excited to dive into. But first, man, we'll address the elephant in the room, so to speak. Which everybody, feel free to let us know your thoughts. Feel free to drop a super chat that helps keeps the show on the air, and let us know what you think about this. So, Nick, I thought that you and I would be able to talk about the results of what happened with Neera Tanden. And I'll be honest, I was predicting that those results were not going to be great. I was predicting she was going to get through. And I also predicted Bernie was probably going to vote for her. So those were my predictions. But as of right now, well, they postponed.
We love to see it, man.
They postponed.
We love to see it.
So they postponed her hearing, probably because the votes aren't there. Now here, this is kind of fun here. So according to this article from CNN, Chairman Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent who caucuses with Democrats and who clashed with Tanden in the past, personally informed Tanden on the phone Tuesday night about the committee's plan.
I wonder if he had a little swagger in his voice when he was talking to her.
Dude, I mean, you can't help but smile a little bit at that one, that he's like, Neera? Wait, that was Obama. Neera, we're going to postpone it.
The left has taken so many L's this last year. We got to take these small victories when we can get them. And this is a glorious moment. And I said before, if there's a way that Neera Tanden can get denied this position, that'd probably be the most glorious day in the on the left since the Nevada caucus, right? Because it's been a rough year. It's been a rough year, but we need
a very rough year.
We need Neera Tanden to lose, and it will be devastating if she won with Bernie Sanders voting for her. I mean, I'm thinking about this. I'm being honest. I mean,
well, that was honestly my prediction. I predicted he was going to vote for her. Yeah, because he didn't say he wasn't going to. Like, he didn't say he wasn't going to, and yeah, I just think he was going to.
I don't understand the politics in that either. And I'm like, I'll be honest, guys. I call it as I see it. If like Bernie Sanders voting for Neera Tanden, that's like the biggest cut move in politics since Ted Cruz voting back for Donald Trump back in the day. Because there is no one who's been nastier than our to our movement to Bernie Sanders and Neera Tanden. I mean, she literally smeared him as a Russian bot, and I was cracking up when they brought that up at the hearing. Neera Tanden. It was Lindsey Graham. I was trying to think of the guy who brought it up. I don't like Lindsey Graham. He's a piece of shit. Whatever.
Well, there was that other Republican. There was that other Republican that like grilled her. I forget the guy's name off the top of my head, but
maybe Hawley.
It might have been, but he like grilled her for a while, and he kept saying, "Do you mean them? Do you stand by them?" And she wouldn't say no, and then finally she just owned up to it. She's like, "Yeah, I meant them. I meant them." Because
Lindsey Graham, he literally read the part where Neera Tanden called Bernie Sanders and all his supporters a Russian bot, and like right in front of their faces. And I'm like, that's one thing. That's one thing. But that's not even my top 5 reasons why you shouldn't post Neera Tanden.
Well, that's the thing. It is far, and I know, like, it goes far beyond her tweets, and it has been so exhausting these past few days when all these Neera Tanden apologists are making it out like, oh, you don't like her just because of her tweets. No. It goes far beyond that. She supported cutting Social Security. She's a warmonger. She wanted to go in Libya to steal oil. When people ask her questions about Iraq, she punches them. She's anti-Medicare for all. The list goes on and on. It's almost like she's on the wrong side of everything. She gets incredibly questionable funding from her Center for American Progress, which when they're saying progress, I think they're referring to the banks. I think that's the only institution they're trying to progress. So yeah, it goes far beyond tweets. And the other thing, everyone's, oh, we might get somebody worse. None of the names that have been thrown out so far, that O'Leary woman and then that Sperling or whatever his name is, none of them would be worse than her. They're all just like Clinton, Obama people, so they wouldn't be great, but they wouldn't be worse than her.
This is why I don't understand. Like, why this fighting against corruption, that's not important to a lot of progressives no more for some reason. Because when you say Neera Tanden is not worse, are you saying that someone's more corrupt than her? Because when it comes to corruption, no one's more corrupt. Like, the focus isn't whether she left or right. Like, you guys are misrepresenting the issue on purpose. Like, when they talk about the tweets, that's not an accident. That was a coordinated effort. A lot of blue checks guys. Cenk was making a clown of himself, literally pretending it was about her tweets. It's like, it's not about her tweets, and not about whether she's to left or right. Because they were saying that as well. Like, yeah, if Neera Tanden doesn't win, we're gonna get someone far to the right. I'm like, that has nothing to do with my complaints. I'm talking about corruption. Who has more conflicts of interest than Neera Tanden does? And she's literally gonna be head of OMB. Like, that's corruption of the highest order. So you guys are misrepresenting the issue. And when Justice Democrats started, the entire point was they were supposed to stand up to corporate corruption, and now they stand up to the person who's literally the queen. She literally was the agent of Hillary Clinton. So I'm like, the tweets is one thing. I like to laugh that we finally got an internet bully. But let me put it like this, because you brought up a list of some horrible things she did. Now I can add on to that. And now imagine this with Trump and their people, right? Because I like to explain to people why I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. A lot of people they be like, how you can say the Democrats are just like Donald Trump? Let me explain why. Imagine this. Imagine a reporter asking Donald Trump tough questions, and Kellyanne Conway punched that reporter. Can you imagine the media meltdown?
I mean, actually, yeah, I can, but I see what you're saying.
Imagine if there was a sexual harassment complaint lobby at Donald Trump, and then they outed the person who made that sexual harassment claim. That's Neera Tanden. That's who she is. That's Trumpism at its core. So when people say, how can you say the Democrat Party. How can you say Joe Biden? How can you say they're just like Trump? I'm like, look at their actions and pretend they're with Trump and how you would react. And that's to the core why I never overreacted and was like, okay, Trump is the worst thing ever. He's just part of the club. He's part of the team. He's part of what they do.
Well, so getting back to the news today, though, why do you think they delayed it? Do you think like they straight up don't have the votes, or do you think they're just maybe stalling because it's so in the public spotlight? They want to just let it simmer a little bit before they hold it. Like, what do you think?
The rumor was they was already looking for people to replace her after they were shut down by Joe Manchin. And then after Joe Manchin shut her down, there was rumors that they might be able to get votes from Susan Collins and Mitt Romney. They're some reason the liberal class love those people. And then they shut that down. And so they were like, damn, we're really fucked now. I was ringing the alarm bells last night because I was celebrating for a while. And then I was thinking about it.
I know you were, and I was like, man, I want some of Nick's optimism over here. I was not. I mean, I said yesterday, I was just like, I think she's going to get through. I think Bernie's going to vote for her. And oh my God, please prove me wrong. I want to be wrong. I want to log in Wednesday morning and say I was wrong. I was proven, and I kind of was, but we don't know for sure yet.
I was asking people like, is there a good chance she's gonna get through? And I'm like, I don't think she has the vote. So I was very excited at first, but then I was thinking last night, damn, I don't trust Joe Manchin. I don't trust that motherfucker at all. Because remember, he was saying he was gonna oppose Joe Biden on his relief checks and oppose him on COVID, but then he backed down on that eventually. Like, and I'm thinking about Joe Manchin. He's one of the biggest phonies of Washington because he always grandstands.
It's pretty bad.
He has a really bad, horrific voting record. Like, he voted for Trump most of the time. But there are a lot of times that when I think about when he do this, he perform in political theater where he pretends he's going to oppose the Democrats, and then last second he always votes with them on major things. He does this a lot. So I'm thinking like maybe he might switch his vote like last second. So that's why I was like, I don't know, guys. I think I may have got to the side too far. I made that tweet late last night where I was like, yo, I actually don't trust Manchin. So I don't know. At first I was leaning towards she wasn't going to get it. And then I was like, all right, I actually don't know. They may were just trying to perform theater or whatever. But now it seemed like with this news coming out, now it kind of seems like she's actually is screwed now, because this is the reason why they usually do this is when they want to look for more candidates to replace her. So we'll see. We can only hope. My finger's going to be crossed that she doesn't get it.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're totally off base with questioning Manchin. I mean, because, yeah, he is one of the, I mean, he's kind of the worst of the worst, but also, he's a right-wing guy. And if you're right-wing, so is she. Like she's a great, like politically, where are you all that different from her? And I'm pretty sure Manchin, his opposition to her was because of, because she was mean to Republicans. And then, he mentioned Bernie too, as a side note, but he didn't like the fact that she was like mean on Twitter to Republicans.
All the opposition to Neera was literally for the worst reasons. I'm like, they're not even focused on
from elected officials. It was, from elected officials. It was, which, man, isn't that a testament to like where we're at as a nation, where we're rooting for a horrible person to do the right thing for all the wrong reasons, but nonetheless we'll take the win. Like, we're hoping Joe Manchin, somebody horrible, does the right thing for all the wrong reasons, but still he's doing the right thing. We'll take it.
I was watching the hearing for a little bit, and I just caught the part. I was very lucky. I didn't watch a lot of it. When I said I only watched probably like 25 minutes in my downtime while I was preparing a meal or something, and I just so happened to caught the part where Josh Hawley was on, and I was sick to my stomach because I'm from Missouri. I live in Missouri. Josh Hawley is my senator. I have absolutely no love for Josh Hawley, but it was Josh Hawley who was calling out Neera Tanden for her Wall Street ties and her corruption, and he was quoting Bernie Sanders. So when it happened, I'm like, oh, I got deep conflict. I don't like this. And that's the position we're at right now. As a left, being a leftist is like being constantly let down by public figures, and that's what we have to go through right now. I would love, and I tweeted this shortly before and shortly after the election. I'm like, I've been critical of Bernie Sanders and AOC and the squad, but I would love nothing more for them to be the #1 opposition to Joe Biden and his administration moving forward. That will kind of help redeem them. in my eye for campaigning for someone who's staying against all their values. But unfortunately, they kind of more apologizing for him instead of doing that. So being left is just being let down over and over again by people. So we gotta take the wins when we get them. That's why I said I don't like Hostley, but when you see Neera Tanden had to face her crush, I'm like, we gotta take that. We gotta take that moment when we can get it. Whenever we get a chance to get victory over these people who push these policies that go directly against what we believe in, I think we should take it. I think we should be happy about it too. I love the celebration part of it.
Well, I think we also have to recognize that it's like we're not represented politically. Like lefties in the United States aren't represented politically, and it's been that way, well, for both of our lifetimes and beyond. I mean, you were saying like earlier, it's been a tough year. Like man, it's been a tough 50 years. like for lefties in this country. I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, the last victory, if you're being generous, was, maybe the 60s. I mean, maybe even further back than that when you think about it. I mean, yeah, society has progressed some, and that's a good thing. But overall, in like politics and I mean, we're just not represented at all. And what has changed between 2016 and now is that for the first time we realized, oh, wait a second, there's more of us than we realized. There's actually a lot of us. Crazy. We're not crazy. We deserve to be represented politically. It's not that like, oh, I was just, I just feel this way and most people in my country don't. So I just have to try to change some people's minds and hopefully someday that's different. It's like, wait a second. No, it's a little more sinister than that. A lot of people think the way I do. Not everybody, granted, but a lot of people. The media is bullshitting us. Surprise, surprise. And we deserve some representation in government. But because of this corrupt duopoly where Wall Street owns both parties, we don't have it. So guess what? We got to break that duopoly. Like, that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, we, like you said, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. We never had that representation. And I always have fun making fun of boomers. And I mean, that's kind of what the highlight of my first article was, while I was talking about how black boomers led up off a cliff. But despite all the times I tried boomers, I always say and let sure people know that I got a ton of respect, a ton of admiration and love for boomers who are still lefties.
Because there's a lot of great lefty boomers out there, man.
Because think about it. Yeah, think about it. So if you're a lefty boomer, that means you went through decades and decades of propaganda. Decades of being gaslit about why you're crazy. And they didn't have the internet. Like our generation was lucky enough where we had the internet. We're like, all right, I guess we're not as crazy as we thought we was. We may be a little bit crazy, but not as crazy. They didn't have no way to connect. Like they were living, like some people, I talked to some people that my friends, they live in bumfuck, like Indiana or some shit. And they had no one to talk to. And they just had this instinct that of left-wing politics. And they were sympathetic to left-wing politics for whatever reason. And they went through decades and decades of propaganda. And then they finally found movement, and now they stay out here fighting. So I got a lot of respect for them. So I always like to bring up. I love shitting on boomers. I think they're the worst generation of all time. They let off a cliff. Literally, my whole article is about how black boomers ruined the status of our youth because black boomers sold us out to the police state. But that's what my article talks about. So I love talking about boomers, but you gotta understand, left boomers are the real comrades. They're the real ones. When I was canvassing in South Carolina, I'll make it short. I met a guy, an OG leftist, who voted for Jesse Jackson. He was driving around the country in the Bernie van. We getting mocked and yelled at by rednecks. We got yelled at before. We had a van that literally said socialism on it. Fuck Trump. And they were like, and people lose their mind. Like, yeah, boy, whatever. This is what I do. They are hardcore, and I got a lot of respect for them. But
oh, totally, man. I mean, every generation has, like good folks that are part of it and bad, like disconnected people, and the boomers, of course, are no exception. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of lefty boomers out there, and they've been, I mean, they kind of paved the way for the rest of us. I mean, they were kind of the people that, they were standing with Abby Hoffman, and history has been rewritten, to really pat a lot of these liberals on the back who, at the end of the day, they weren't the people who were actually fighting those fights that has pushed push society forward. It was a lot of the lefty boomers who have been written out of it. So yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I make fun of every single generation, my own included.
Same here.
I make fun of everybody. I mean, I've gotten some hate mail from various people before, and I'm like, dude, I make fun of every generation, the boomers, the millennials, Gen X, even although Gen Z, I got a lot of love for the Zoomers and Gen Z, but I make fun of them too. I don't understand all your music, you crazy kids. So
yep. And to the point you made earlier, the reason why I brought that up because it's like we finally had semblance of representation now, and the reason why I've been ringing alarm bells and the reason why I've been critical of our leaders because like we had when you look at the Neera Tanden thing to bring back to Neera, you had lefties and progressives from all over. You had progressive and leftists I didn't even agree with. Everyone to her saying Bernie shouldn't vote for Neera. Everyone is pleading with Bernie. Please do not vote for Neera. So the only question I want to pose, and I can drop it here, for people who get upset with me when I criticize progressive politicians, why is it okay for them to say "fuck you" like this when it comes to issues like this? And I'm not talking about forced vote because this once again, this is just another example. They're forced to vote. The issue of Julian Assange. The issue of Neera Tanden. So there's more, but I just take these three. If they're supposed to represent us and we're their constituents, why is it okay for them to say "fuck you" to us on these three important issues? At what point does this become unacceptable when they no longer listen to us and they become more loyal to the party? And that's the question I always want to ask. That's why this Neera Tanden vote, I mean, that's kind of revealing as well. I mean, I understand the politics, but I understand the concept of inside-outside game. That I think I understand the concept, but the inside game not doing their job. It's literally that simple. Like even if I agree with you on your strategy, which I think there's some merits to it, I would say the people on the inside is not doing their job. That's my criticism of what I think is going on.
Yeah, and people make it out like that's an unfair thing, and it really isn't. I mean, if you are, a progressive who is an elected official and you really do stand for those principles, you are outnumbered. Yeah, I'll give you that. But that means whenever you have a little bit of leverage, you have to use it to the utmost. And it also means, you got to make your colleagues uncomfortable a lot of the time. That's not an easy thing to do, but that's what you were elected to do. Yeah, that's what people elected you to do. That's what your base expects from you. And if you're not going to do it, well, then why are we like, what's the point then? Just so you can tweet nice things? Just be an activist. If all you're going to do, and I don't mean it like that, just because I actually think that activists are way more important than politicians 1,000% of the time. But I'm just saying, like, if you're just going to like stand for good principles and tweet nice things, just be an activist. Like, why make a bunch of people hustle to vote for you and put you in office if you're not gonna, challenge your colleagues and push your colleagues who are, your fellow people in office. So yeah, I'm with you 110% on that one. Like, I don't, I think that.
And let me say this, Ron. I actually very sympathetic to, like, a lot of people got misconceptions about me. Like, I'm actually sympathetic to your guys' argument. I'm telling you guys what you got to do to be successful, even though I disagree, because I actually agree with having an outside left force, like a third party. I'm very supportive of that. Even like, I don't understand the critics of that, because even if you're supportive of taking over the Democratic Party, in order to do that, you need a left wing force. So I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand. People don't understand it. But even if I agree with your topic, I'm telling you what you got to do to be successful. And the point I was making during the Force the Vote campaign and during the Neera Tanden vote, and when it comes to Julian Assange, I'm saying there's an adverse effect that hurts them by not doing that. Because how are you getting your campaign money? How are you getting your volunteers? You're not like corporate Democrats. Apparently, you're not taking corporate money. So you're not getting funded from Wall Street. Your campaigns are being funded by grassroots activists and people that knock on your door. I volunteered for Bernie. I quit my job and went multiple states campaigning for Bernie Sanders. Right. So if I see you not acting the way where I believe you're not representing me, I am less likely to do stuff like that. I already hear people, and once again, this is not me just saying this. I'm friends with a ton of activists, and there are a lot of people that are saying I'm not gonna fucking canvas. I'm not gonna donate to them no more.
Oh, dude, I'm one of them. I'm one of them, Nick. I mean, I said after, and I certainly don't regret, anything that happened. Well, I mean,
I have
2020
no
was
regret.
was a shit show. I have no regrets. But after it, I kind of looked around and I'm like, okay, I think electoralism is in such a dire situation. I understand it is part of the toolkit of change, but it is just one piece. There
Exactly.
are a lot of other pieces. We over amplify electoralism, and I'm tired of it. And I want to start to migrate away from that. And one of the decisions I made was that all my bandwidth, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to have people running for office on my show or anything like that. Of course, I'll still do all those things. But as far as my bandwidth that I have to extend as financially and just as a volunteer and as anything else, it's 100% causes. It's 0%
Exactly.
electoralism. And
And
that
that's
doesn't
not
mean
it.
I don't like, I mean, there's a lot of people who are running for office that I think are amazing and I want to see them win 110%. It's
Yeah,
just,
100%.
I would rather be pushing for municipal broadband, pushing for net neutrality on campaigns like that. Pushing for helping out in my community, getting involved in mutual aid. We've been having a lot more mutual aid people on this show.
Love it.
One
I
of them
love
lives
it.
in my neighborhood in San Pedro.
That's
I'm trying
awesome,
to
man.
get involved with everything she's got going on. So, I mean, to me, that's just, I'd rather spend my bandwidth there. Quite frankly,
Right.
too, I mean, honestly, you feel better doing
Yeah,
it. I
you
mean,
do.
you
You
just feel
do.
way better
That's a good
knowing
point.
that you helped a food insecure person get something to eat
You actually getting
than
something
than
done.
than you will knocking on someone's door trying to convince them to vote for somebody. And we need people to do that stuff. I'm not knocking people who are more involved with electoralism. All power to you. But dude, for me, I'm just like, you know what? I'm better suited somewhere else.
And this is my point though. That's my point. If they did stuff, if they actually listen to the constituents, there'll be less people feeling that way because they will actually see merits in doing that. This is why people who get mad at me, they're missing the point for putting pressure on them because I'm actually giving you good advice. Your ego is just too big to accept it. Because I'm like, if people see you, because
Tell
my
them that.
stance,
That'll make them less mad.
it really is. It's all ego. It's because they want to justify why they're still a member of this horrific party that is complicit with the same crimes the Republicans are. So they tell themselves shit like they're working on a lesser two evils, and we're actually making for change, even though nothing is changing. Even though we still got kids in cages. Even though we still not going back to the Iran deal.
Nick, they're
So
not kids in cages anymore. They're not kids in cages. They're unaccompanied minors. Okay, Nick, get it right. They were kids in cages. Now they're just unaccompanied minors.
Man, I want to go crazy.
It's different now.
I'm gonna turn to the Joker by the end of these next 4 years, man. Like I said it was gonna happen. The only thing I have, guys, is I told you so. I'm sorry. So that's only after this last year of nothing but losses. That's all I have. So indulge me. I told you guys they was gonna do this. I told you guys nothing be because there's a lot of people don't even understand the basic premise of what made me a leftist in the first place. Like people say, we're gonna push Biden left. You understand that go against the premise that made me a leftist in the first place? You know what made me a leftist? What got me out of the two-party duopoly is when I realized that there's a permanent state and we operate on the apparatus where the presidents don't really get to change big shit like that. So when Joe Biden was saying, all right, we're gonna make sure we get back in our Iran deal, we're not gonna be insane on Iran like Donald Trump was, I'm like, I'm skeptical because that seemed like that's more of a state decision than a president decision because what Trump was doing was essentially the same thing the military-industrial complex wanted to do. So when Joe Biden said he's gonna not do that, I'm like, okay, I'm skeptical. So then we got in, and Iran literally saying this last week. He's like, bro, their foreign policy literally the same as Trump. They're not easing the sanctions. They're not getting back in the deal. And if anyone remember, Joe Biden's campaign promise was day one he was getting back to the Iran deal. Not I'm gonna play these games with Iran and puff up my chest and go warmonger with China as well on top of that. So once again, that's just another example. I don't want to go on too long of a tangent. That's just another example. It's like, bro, these people they use. I say ego earlier because they gotta justify why they support.
You think it's ego or do you think it's fear?
It's a little bit.
Do you think it's both? I mean, because look, man, I think a lot of people
a little bit.
They do want systemic change. I really do feel that way. And I think, we're not always going to agree 100% on strategy. People have forgotten, first of all, that that's okay. You don't have to agree 100% on strategy, and you can try different things and you can kind of see what works and what doesn't and keep trying to move forward. And hell, man, when you've been losing nonstop for about 50 years, I think we should try different things. Like it's like, why not be open to some different ideas when we've been doing nothing but losing for about 50 years?
The reason I'm bringing that up because I'm saying my original point to go back was we need AOC burning squad to do these things, to speak about Julian Assange, to not vote for Nancy Pelosi, to vote against Neera Tanden, because we need that active engagement. And it's not like Joe Biden's doing what they say is going to happen, because Bernie Sanders said on day one we're going to put Joe Biden to the left, and literally the exact opposite is happening. Like, I can't. It's unbelievable.
So Nick, you don't think that you give somebody what they want from you and then they'll compromise with you? You don't think life works that way? You don't think we can give Joe Biden our votes, which is what he wanted from us, and then he's going to change? You don't think it works that way? Crazy.
And it's funny, the people that were screaming that you guys have no idea how to leverage your power. It's funny how we're being proven right as time goes on. Because we like, as Joe Biden continued to abandon his promises, I'm like, okay, that's exactly what we knew was going to happen once you give up all your power to begin with. And now we have no left-wing flank that's actually challenging Biden in any substantive way. The fact that they even entertained the idea, I mean, I was shocked by this. I didn't see that coming. Honestly, I didn't see it coming. Seeing progressives apologize for Neera Tanden. Now that was like, okay, something is fucked up now. Like something is really wrong. When I saw them voting for Nancy Pelosi, and once again, that had nothing to do with forced to vote. Like, I'm not like, I actually, my thing was, I don't think you should vote for Nancy Pelosi altogether. But that wasn't my thing. Like, all right, you should vote against Nancy Pelosi because she's corrupt. That's what I brought up earlier. It's corruption. It's not about whether you left or right, whether you support Medicare for all. And I think it's about the corruption. So I think my stance was you should vote against Nancy Pelosi because of her inside trading. And because of the way she handled the COVID relief, where she was literally playing politics over giving people checks. Like, these are the reasons why we don't vote for her. But I'm like, all right, if you're going to vote for her, at least get Medicare for all. that was my position. But I'm like, if you don't do stuff like that, you give people reason to tune out. And that only hurts you. So that's why I was saying ego, to bring it all back. That's why I was saying ego, because they can't even acknowledge that. Well, I'm saying I'm not criticizing you because I hate you. I'm criticizing you because you're wrong. like you're just wrong in your approach. And because if you... They believe that if they fought against Nancy Pelosi, if they fight against Neera Tanden, that would hurt them in the long run. And how does that make sense, Ron? Well, we just explained how they losing volunteers, they losing people who want to donate to their campaign to otherwise. Do you think the Pete Buttigieg supporter, the average Elizabeth Warren, bourgeoisie, liberal white wine mom going to be out there canvassing for you? No. If you look at Georgia, exactly. How did they win Georgia? I was losing my mind because A1 was trying to pretend Stacey Abrams had anything to do with that. And I'm not gonna throw away anything that Stacey Abrams apparently did. But I think what she did was overrated, because there were people that saying there were literally large networks of volunteers, like Bernie Sanders SLAC members in Georgia, who were organizing and helped them win the Senate seat. Bernie Sanders came out for Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. So people like Stacey Abrams, the reason why they won. I think the young grassroots activists who was on the ground is the reason why they won. So now
there's the promise. There was the promise of the $2,000 checks, which we're still waiting on that one. And when they don't deliver, which it looks like they're not going to, I mean, they're getting ready for a bloodbath in 2022. And this is how it works. And this is why, like, I don't see how anyone fantasizes that the duopoly can continue. It just can't. Because they have this really nice setup where the Democrats are completely ineffective. The Republicans are a special brand of repulsive, and they rely on that from each other. The Republicans rely on the ineffectiveness of the Democrats so that they can keep getting elected. The Democrats rely on the repulsiveness of the Republicans so that they can keep getting elected. And the insanely ridiculous neo-fascist and neoliberal cycle continues. And you got to break the chain. Like there's just no other, but so let's actually move on to something kind of cool. I got a little bit of good news for you. You say you like to celebrate. Here's a little bit of good news. So, you know me, I'm a big net neutrality, municipal broadband guy. And, here in California, one good thing that did happen recently was, that the Biden administration did drop a lot of the Trump administration's lawsuits. One of those lawsuits was the lawsuit against the net neutrality law that was passed here in California. So that lawsuit got dropped, saying the net neutrality law that was signed into law in 2018 here in California, lawsuit against it dropped. Well, now the lawsuit that the telecom industry had That's not being seen either. So California can finally enforce its landmark net neutrality law. Judge rules. It survived challenges from Trump's DOJ and now one from the telecom industry too. So boom. That's the verdict from Judge John Mendez today, who declined to grant the telecom industry the preliminary injunction it had requested. So the case might not be over, but the net neutrality law can go into effect, and the judge doesn't think the telecom industry is likely to win. Now, this affects everyone. I know you live in Missouri, Nick, so you're like, California, that doesn't help me. But here's the deal. Whenever states get solid net neutrality bills, those are huge customer bases where these big cable companies can't enforce anti-net neutrality packages. So the more states that get net neutrality laws, especially big states like California, that just kind of stifles big cable's ability to price gouge people with anti-net neutrality packages. So this is a win. It's not a, I mean, obviously there are still many problems in the world, but net neutrality is a big part of the mission of this show. It's a big cause that's really important on this show. So we got a small victory, folks. And sometimes I don't know how that feels. Like sometimes whenever I read the news, Nick, and I find myself smiling, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Am I having an allergic reaction to something I ate? But it's like, no, this is actually good news.
Yeah, we don't give them a lot. That's why we got to when we get them. And this is what my main focus has been on. We were talking about how our main drive right now is not necessarily electoral politics. I want more wins on the left on a local level of great importance like this. And this is why I strongly advise people to start looking to ballot initiatives, because everyone called Missouri a bumfuck red state, and we kind of are, to be honest. But if you put expanding Medicaid on the vote, you put expanding minimum wage to the vote, it always passes here. We got medical marijuana because we put on the ballot. We see the how much ranked choice voting was approved because it put on the ballot. And when we have activists that fight for net neutrality, and like these local leftist wins are going to be very, very important, because when you look on the national level, we talked about before, it doesn't look great. So we got to focus on real issues that are going to affect people's lives, like whether it be supporting like local members who support local Medicaid expansions in your area, expanding education in the area, support local politicians who support defunding the police, because the media don't talk about it, but we have made a ton of ground this year. Like there's been a lot of communities that either halted police spending or they decreased it. It's funny because I saw a Bloomberg story I covered it on my show where they were trying to pose it as a bad thing. They was like, yeah, defund the police. Apparently not a lot of cities aren't doing that. But when you look at the article, it was like, bro, it's like 50%. It's like a 50-50 cut. So it's like, bro, there's a lot. We actually look at the numbers. The amount of cities that decreased the funding of police had gone up. But they try to frame it as like, oh, this is just a law. No, that's progress. And I covered that on my show. But like defund the police as a concept was deeply unpopular in summer, but over the course of the year, as people spread awareness, now 55% independent supported. 74%.
Yeah, because a lot of people, when they first heard it, they didn't really understand what exactly it meant. And then when you broke it down and you're like, no, see, this is what the city spends. All this money goes to police. And what are they doing with it? They're brutalizing you. This isn't making you safer. And look at all these little bars. That's what education gets. That's what parks get. That's what preventative services get. That's what resources for the community. That's what they get. All those small little bars. And then see this big, huge, ridiculous bar. That's what the police gets. And what are they getting with that? Rubber bullets, tear gas, the ability to commit war crimes against their own people, a freaking tank. What do they need a tank for other than to make a really dumb, drunken decision some Saturday night? They don't need a freaking tank.
And this is what they was afraid of. Like, despite what they were saying, the way they report on defund the police was literally just to drive down support. Anyone who got basic leftist knowledge of how the media works understand that, manufacturing consent, all that. So when they were saying defund the police would never work for Democrats, I was telling people literally during the summer and on my show in the fall, I was like, bro, we're going to win this battle, because when you actually think about it, when you literally explain this concept to people, how much they spend. Like, I was talking to a friend before. Do you understand the NYPD budget is 3 times higher than the North Korea military budget? So the country that they say we're supposed to be afraid of spend 3 times less than the police and NYPD. So once you explain this issue, and once you explain the basic concept that we want to reallocate these resources to healthcare, mental health care, education, etc., I'm like, bro, this is an easy slam dunk issue. And people and the media were like, oh, this is unpopular right now. Democrats not going to run on it. But I'm like, that's always how it starts. Like when the civil rights movement started in the 60s, a lot of people pretend this didn't happen, but the majority of white liberals was against the bus sit-ins and the restaurant sit-ins. So these movements always start off as unpopular, but our job as an activist is to spread awareness. So I know, like as soon as we actually dive into this issue, and now people are talking about it, now the internet exposing the crimes of the police, and now they're doubling down again worse when the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protest was happening, when there was literally gassing people more and beating the shit out of people, and they literally had a watchdog that was looking into NYPD, and they concluded that they had excessive force during the time of the George Floyd protests. I mean, that study came out a last few weeks, but that doesn't surprise anyone who was paying attention. So I'm like, okay, this is very unfortunate, but you guys are only helping us. So my point, to get back to the original point, I always get into these tangents. The original point was get people to support defunded policing in local areas. Because this is happening right now. There are people in Minneapolis and Oakland, and a lot of these areas where they actually defund the police in their area, where they said they was blown, because they've been working on these stuff for 15, 20 years. I mean, we are like a lot of people have been exposed to this fight, but there have been a lot of activists in the local area that's been engaged in this for a long time. And they said they've been unbelievably shocked at how fast things have activated ever since George Floyd protests, and things are only ramping up because I'm constantly studying this. I report this stuff on my show all the time. Where I'm like, bro, people over here are looking to defund the police. Like this is happening in local areas, like,
and it's spreading via the net too.
Yeah, and some lost. Like I'll be real with you. There were some initiatives that lost, but then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna try again." Like right. That's how you win. That's how you get. How you win these fights. You tried the first time.
Yeah, isn't that funny when people are just like, "Well, what if it doesn't? We try again." No, that's what happens. We try again. What happens if this vote fails? We try again. We try again.
That's
the public banks failed the first time in California, but now we have a separate policy that's going to permit us to make 10 public banks in the state. So people are going to try again. Rent control fails constantly in California, but you know what? We're going to keep freaking trying, and other states are too. I got one more piece of good news in the digital rights sphere for you too. So I got two pieces of good news for you, Nick. And some of you regular Get Your News On with Ron watchers, you remember when we had Representative Drew Hansen on the show. Now he's up in Washington State. He introduced a bill to lift the regulations that Washington State had against municipal broadband. There are a handful of states, well, more than a handful, but there are some states out there that still have red tape against allowing communities to create municipal broadband, which is city-owned internet. Washington State is one of those states. It's probably because one of the first municipal broadband efforts was in Tacoma, Washington, and big cable probably didn't like it. But guess what? Representative Drew Hansen proposed his bill. And guys, I broke my own rule. I say that I never like or retweet anything from elected officials. I broke that rule last night because I did like this tweet. This is a tweet from Rep Drew Hansen. The Washington House just passed my Public Broadband Act with bipartisan support. It's long past time for Washington State to allow full public broadband. Let your state senators know public broadband now. So the State House did pass the Public Broadband Act, lifting regulations up in Washington State. So boom, another example, working on the local level, working on the state level.
Yeah, this is why it's important to always stay in the fight. There were a lot of people that was for good reason, not for bad reasons, right? Who got discouraged after our massive L's in 2020. But I was telling people that fighting will always be in my blood because it is important to get these kind of wins. I mean, this is a very important issue. Once again, when I was talking to people in South Carolina, they don't have this kind of access. So this is one of these issues that is very, very important to raise. And this is how you flip people to the left, where you in rural right-wing areas, like in areas that need public broadband. You can talk about these issues to win them over. So once again, very important victory. All these victories are worth celebrating because we're not going to necessarily win on a national level anytime soon. It could be hard to get super giant victories. So it's very important to accumulate small victories like this over and over. So I love to see it.
Right on, man. Yeah, I mean, and they both have the same theme of like how it's great when you act locally.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, we got off of electoralism for the most part, and I'm already in better spirits.
It feels like
So
you're not wasting your time. It feels less icky. Instead of
it
just
really does.
because mostly electoralism is just usually working on someone's career. That's what I kind of come to the conclusion on. Whether they're gonna use their career to help you, let's hope. But that's literally what it is. But when you actually do stuff like this, that actually will affect people, like you said earlier, mutual aid. When you actually can help someone feed their family and keep a roof over their head, that's the most important. And that's definitely something that we should continue to focus on.
So I want to use the rest of the time to talk about you and what you got going on, man. So tell me about Fred Hampton Leftist. What's going on there? What do you got coming up, man? I saw your tweet this morning. I retweeted it. Looks like some cool stuff.
Nice. So I've been talking about doing this for a long time because I call myself a citizen journalist. It's not anything fancy. It's just the concept that anyone who can share a story is a journalist. I don't like people who gatekeep who can be considered a journalist. That's why people who continue to smear Julian Assange annoys me to no end. Who like, he's not a journalist. Like, yes, he is. Shut up.
He's won awards for it. He's won awards for journalism.
Yes.
And technically these days he's a publisher. So if you really want to nitpicky, if someone's smearing him, well, he's not even a journalist. You're right. He's a publisher, which isn't a freaking crime. So
whenever
there you go.
Say that I can't take anything they say about politics seriously. But anyway, back on the Fred Hampton. So what my goal is, I want to give, I want to amplify the voices of people who not usually lifted up. You listen to CNN, MSNBC, usually the approved talking heads. So I think we need to let that go and stop watching these people. Like, there's no value in us watching cable news and no value in us propping them up. So even I watch a lot of leftist independent news, and even people I disagree with. Like, so I have people who are like, "Why are you watching?" I'm like, well, I just want to see another perspective that's not corporate news or whatever. So anyone who's authentic, I would support in terms of independent news, because I think it's very important, because that's what tanked our campaign, was literally the corporate news bias and the Bernie blockouts. I mean, I can get into a long spiel on that. But what is very important, and one thing I know is particularly that drove me crazy and drive a lot of Black leftists crazy, is how our voice is completely erased. Because think about the so-called leftists, they're now on the left, they pretty much Democrat operatives. You see on CNN, they'll have the approved voices, the Van Jones, the Don Lemons. On MSNBC, you see Joanne Reed, Jason Johnson. These are the worst of the Black community. They are the Black liberals that literally led us off a cliff. So they're literally a misconception that I have seen my entire life in the media. And I know this from talking to people in our community. No one likes the ruling class around here. And you look at people who vote, yes, Black people majority vote Democrat, but then majority of Black people don't vote. The reason why we don't vote, because we don't like the ruling class, because they don't represent us. And if you look at the numbers of people who vote, the youth Blacks, we don't like the Democrat Party, because there is a select group of people, a young Black leftists, who are completely ignored in the political dialogue. Which is why I'm blessed I have my platform now, because I guess you guys discovered one. And what I want to do is I want to give the voice to more of these people, because a lot of people, when I wrote my article about how Black boomers let off a cliff because they embraced neoliberalism, because that's exactly what they've done. And we need an opposition to that. When I see Black boomers voting for Joe Biden en masse over the guy who said he would give them health care, I'm like, okay, this is a problem. This is something that we gotta start calling out. I'm like, bro, sorry, it's time for some tough love in terms of Black boomers and boomers in general. But I'm talking about people I know in my community, the people who just blindly vote for the Democratic Party, people who blindly idolize Barack Obama, and some of the worst people. Like, there's literally Black people who would like Hillary Clinton and them. That makes no sense to me. And so with the Fred Hampton leftists, what we are Black leftists who've been ignored. And the liberal class has been shocked by my rises last year. I always like to post the number of people who have me blocked, because a lot of people who follow my tweets, they know I'm not malicious. Like, I don't attack people. I don't
see how anyone can get mad at you, even if they disagree with you. People are so petty, though.
I've been blocked by over 5,000 accounts on Twitter.
Wow.
I don't even attack people.
How do you know?
My politics. They had, and this thing is, that's an undercount, because you know how they got these weird apps on Twitter. So
okay, you used an app.
Yeah, there's an app you can sign up to, how many people can block, and you understand that number is low, because it only counts the people who signed up for that. So that's the number that I know people who signed up to see how many people blocked them. So the number is way higher now. I actually rounded up. The number was around 4,000, but someone told me, they were like, that they only show the people that actually has that app. So it doesn't show all Twitter. So that number is actually really low. And so I'm like, what's my crime? What do I do to get worthy? I don't tweet at people. I usually just tweet my politics. I respond to big names. Like I punch up. Like if you got a giant account, I may call you out, but I'm not aiming at like the small guy. Very rarely. But people hate the opinions of black leftists because it shatters the liberal psyche. Because the liberal psyche is they are standing up for the disenfranchised community. And if you're not supportive of the Democrat Party, you're a racist. And we're like, no, you're not standing up for us. You're literally propping up white supremacy. And your party is a joke. So they can't really debate us, so they silence us. So what we want to do at the Fred Hampton Leftist podcast is start to expand this voice that have been missing from the political sphere for a long time. I mean, there are a lot of great people that are doing work right now, but it's still very infantile. We're Fred Hampton leftist, we Dr. Cornel West leftist, MLK leftist. So
is it going to be just a question about like just structure? Is it going to be like an audio podcast or like an audio video? Is it going to be like a YouTube thing or a little bit of everything?
We're gonna have it in audio form. I'm gonna be twitching it live on my show as well. I mean, this is a giant collaboration project because a lot of people who follow us know us individually. Rome, he has a great YouTube show. Compton J, he has an amazing show as well. I've been doing Jackie Poe has amazing audio podcast. So what we're doing here with the Fred Hampton podcast, we are kind of coming together, and we're gonna have we had our last panel, our first episode we did last Saturday. I streamed it, and we got it live on our YouTube page. We're gonna be meeting up once a week to have discussions, but you're gonna be seeing a lot of work from black leftists. So it may not be all of us at the same time. So it may it could be I could be interviewing Dr. Cornel West on our show one day, or maybe Andrew Rome is on the street because he like to do a lot of on-field reporting. So he could be on the streets of Detroit talking to people about their everyday life. That's why I really appreciate the content that he does, because he more direct activist talking to people. And then Compton J,
he's a Detroit guy.
Yeah, he's a Michigan activist.
Oh man, you got to put me in touch with him.
Yeah. You
put me in touch with him.
We've been good. He's been on my show. He's a friend of the show. Once again, the Fred Hampton Leftist podcast is all about and people who say Twitter not real life. This is what you're missing on, because as we talked about earlier, there's a sense of leftists where we feel like we're going crazy because there's no one who represents us, when no one actually believe what we believe. And as someone who was deeply dissatisfied with Democrat Party, black leadership, as a black man, we hooked up on Twitter with a lot of black leftists, and there's a very tight solidarity I see in that we have amongst each other, because we like, dude, you get it too. You're not on the plantation as well. You don't like Democrat. I knew I'm not crazy, and I'm like, dude, there's so many of us that prop each other up, that support each other. Why not just make it a thing? Like we all supporting like each other. So we got this podcast together we all pretty much friends on Twitter. We all pretty much activists. We pretty much in this game one way or another. We like, let's put our own stuff out there where they can ignore. And that's why I'm very excited to see that people are excited about that. And when I have Rome and Compton J, Jackie, all of us on the show, you get the perspective from black people you're not going to ever hear in almost anywhere else. Like I'm thinking, where else in media will you get this from? Because people listen to our show. I mean, we're not anywhere. We just getting started, so we're just climbing. But people who watch it, we never ever heard news like this before, because it's never been presented. It's never been presented. I can have a hard time thinking about what the options are out there. I mean, there's some great voices out there. I'm not saying there's not, but we want people who are not necessarily Harvard educated, or not necessarily part of the in group, to tell their story. Because I'm just some guy in Kansas City who used to sell cars for years, who blew up on Twitter for some reason. There's no reason for me to have a platform I do, but it's about people who actually live the struggle, who can tell our story, tell us why we don't like Democrat Party. This is why they don't want to listen to us, because Rome, the guy telling you earlier, he will actually tell you stories about how the Democrat Party harmed his life, his family life, and everyone he knows his life. And same thing for me too. So how can you discount these stories? You can't. That's why I think it's important to tell them. That's what our show is going to be about.
So what are the 10 demands?
The 10 demands, this is one of many of the activist groups I'm working with, because once again, the issue of police abolition is dear to my heart, because I mean, the Black community has been telling the story for a very, very long time. It's just only through the internet recently people understand that we was right. The white American for decades. I mean, my dad would tell me stories. Our generation, there was never a point where the Black community was content with the police and other disenfranchised community. Once again, I work on an article on defund police as well. And another thing I want to bring up is, once again, it's not just a Black issue, it's a issue. But if you're not a member of the ruling class or the privileged class, because the police has always been a fascist system used to go after and impose racial hierarchies and go after disenfranchised communities, make sure they kept in line. This idea that people have that the police is a system that is designed to protect people and protect and serve, that is straight up ridiculous. And critics of defund the police and police abolition are deeply unserious people, because there's never been a point in time where the police ever existed to protect and serve us. In fact, there's actually a judge ruling, I posted it on Twitter a few days ago, where they rule constantly in federal court they don't have no obligation to protect you. You guys know that the only obligation that police has to protect us is when we're in custody. They legally got to protect people in custody, but they don't have to protect us. That's what federal court has ruled. And that what we want to, the awareness we want to spread in 10 Demands. And we launched this group around the George Floyd protest because we was starting to see the spread and awareness of this fascist police state. And it's very important to have a protest and spread awareness, but there's a point where we got to make action be known. And we were just talking about how local politics is very important. So we have a list of 10 demands. And these 10 demands, we literally want you to plug this up and bring this up to your local support and demand people, local politicians, and local representatives to support these initiatives. This is how you make change over the long term. So that's why we come with you 10 demands. So we actually have action on top of what the protests are.
Well, are the 10 demands like all around police and law enforcement specifically, or is it like just broader?
Yeah, I can go through them now. So, okay. But once again, mostly it focuses on police abolition, and our tenets is all about the road to abolition, because a lot of people need to understand that when you defund the police, that's a road to abolition, and that's what abolitionists have spoke about in their literature for decades. That's what Angela Davis speaks about all the time. So a lot of people assume that we don't have a path to getting this done. We do have a path to getting police abolition done, because once you actually rid the community of these fascist police system that is overlording us and hauling away all our resources and putting that to education, putting that to mental health care, you can drop the crime rate by doing that. There's constant studies that show that. We've seen that done throughout multiple societies in multiple countries, where you can drop the crime rate by literally investing to the communities. So once we defund the police, we reallocate that to local communities, and they can protect. And my stance is, A1 differs on this a little bit. I'm like, bro, you have your funds in your local community. You can do what you want to do in your local community. Have your local leaders, because that's how it used to be done. When you look at former civilizations of the past, there was never this idea of this fascist police that we have now. Yeah. Always local communities that will look after each other. And then this idea of carceral punishment, this is what we talk about in 10 Demands, that only became a thing because of capitalism and imperialism.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. That's why I say, and I make the point, that critics of defund the police and critics of police abolition, they are deeply unserious, because they don't even understand the issue. They don't even understand the system they are propping up. The system they're propping up literally came to be because capitalism needed a way to keep the working class in line, and they needed a way to protect the material goods of the ruling class, and they also needed to install racial hierarchies once they started invading other countries and having slaves. That's why they had to have slave patrols. And then once these communities started integrating into societies, whether it be, once again, there are racial issues in that, but once again, it's all about imposing hierarchies. So when you had the Irish that came in America, they were victims of police brutality as well. The indigenous people have been probably the worst victims of police brutalities, literally ever since we wiped them out. It's always been a thing. They are literally designed to enforce the hierarchies. So we want to spread awareness on that, and then we put our demands, we put we want people to understand what we can do to fix this.
Sure.
Defund the police, demilitarize police, and I mean these things. Like, a lot of these things we are talking about are like common sense reforms, and this would drive me crazy. You have a lot of liberals who say we can't defund the police. We got to do common sense reforms. We're like, okay, we address those reforms, and you guys not even for those reforms. You know what a popular reform that you can do that will actually greatly improve the situation that which I support. There are a lot of people like, oh, they're not good. There are good reforms. One good reform is disarming the police. Liberals don't even support that.
Yeah.
They don't like. So when they say, well, so just know when liberals say we gotta support reform instead of defunding police or abolition, just know they gaslighting you, because when you actually bring up good reforms like we doing all this year, they're actually not for them.
Well, yeah, and the whole concept of like we can just reform it, it's like, no, that ship sailed a long, long time ago. You can't reform what this whole thing has become, because it has nothing to do with serving and protecting. I mean, imagine if we didn't have the concept of police as we do in the United States, and like we were just randomly sitting around some table trying to decide how to like enforce laws and for a society, and someone came up with the idea of police as we know it. You'd laugh that person out of the room. Like you'd laugh that like, hey, I got it. We're gonna have really poorly trained people with guns, and they're just gonna respond to everything, and they could just kill people whenever
they
they
got
want.
no accountability. They get immunity.
No accountability. We're not going to do a good job screening them. So chances are KKK members of white supremacists, they're going to get through. But I don't see a problem. Like you'd laugh that person out of the room. You'd be like, get the fuck out of this room. You're out of your mind.
And this is why I always explain to them. And the people who prop up the police, they're like children to me. Like I have no respect for them. Like these are the people who like they will watch Rush Hour. Like they will watch Die Hard, and they would think that's a documentary on how the police actually operate. They actually think like police are these gun-toting heroes that are stopping crime, even though they don't. They literally don't. I'm doing my research in the article. They don't even solve 2% of serious crimes. They only solve 2% of serious crimes. They literally don't test most rape kits. They don't do nothing. They actually do nothing to solve crimes. And people
half the time they create it. I mean, half the time it's like, I mean, you get these accounts from people who went along on like police, like you can go along in the car or whatever because you know a police officer, and they're like, you guys are just driving around looking to start problems. Like you just pull people over because you're bored, and you're like, in a lot of cases these people are like the school bully who never grew up, and now they have a badge and a gun. What could possibly go wrong? And I think a lot of people who are apologists for him, they're also just stuck in their own bubble. Yeah. And maybe they have like a neighbor who's a cop and he's a nice guy. So they're like, come on. It's like, look, I'm not going to argue over whether or not your neighbor's a nice guy. I don't have that kind of bandwidth. I'll just take your word for it. But what I'm saying is the system that your neighbor is a part of is corrupt beyond repair, is repulsive beyond repair, and it's just there to brutalize people. It shouldn't exist. That system should be abolished, and we should reinvent the way we have law enforcement in our lives. And guess what? If your neighbor is such a nice guy, he can be part of that, and he can be part of the new reimagined law enforcement that we come up with that will inevitably not be shittier than what we have now.
Yeah, propaganda is so bad. People don't understand this idea that they have as a police, and what they believe they do never existed. Like what they believe the police did, it never happened. Like even when you look past the slave patrol, everyone talk about the slave patrol. There's one aspect of police history and police culture. But when have they been this crime stopping, community helping organization? Even when
in the movie,
even when they stopped being slave patrol, even when they implemented police as a way to enforce local order, they became corrupt. They get bought up by outlaws. Like that was literally a thing. Like they actually did nothing to stop crime. What they would do back in the day, they was actually a Puritan police. So what they did, that back when we was heavily religious and we had a lot of socially conservative laws, so they would go around make sure people don't day drink. They'll make sure.
I got some bad news, Nick. We still do, buddy. We still do. That's not really a thing of the past.
Yeah, you're right on that one. But that what they did back in the day. Like even the idea that people had, the police. I guess even the liberal that will admit that the police is going too far now, they're like, well, the police they used to be good. When they've been good? Back in the day, they would just make sure that the wife not sleep on their husband. Like this kind of stuff they did in the 1800s. Make sure people not day drinking. Like that was their role. They wasn't stopping criminals. It was actually a notorious problem in the 1800s where you have police sheriffs that was bought off by these big outlaw groups. Like that was a thing. They always been massively corrupt and never worked. And then remember back in the Al Capone, what happened to Al Capone? The police force got bought up by Al Capone. They didn't understand him down. So it's like, bro, when you look at multiple phases in history, where you want to look at the current age, when you want to look at the 60s when they were paired up with the KKK, when you look at the 30s when they paired with the mobsters, when you look at the 1800s when they paired with outlaws, like what era of history are you guys talking about where police were these upstanding moral bastions of justice? It never was a thing. It never happened, guys. Let it go. The fantasy never existed, and that's what we want to get. That's what we want to get point. And 10 demands is actually how you put that in action. That's to answer your original question. We're gonna get again these 10s. But that what we want to do. We got to spread awareness and then put these demands and work on it on a local level. I mean, that's what you can get everything on our demands done at local level. There are a lot of information there. So go to 10demands.org. Check it out.
Awesome, dude. And so
10forjustice.com. Sorry. 10forjustice.com. Make sure
10forjustice.com.
Yeah.
Well, so where can people go to learn more about you, to find all of your content and the Fred Hampton's Leftist podcast? Like, where can people go to find all that stuff?
Most people know me as SocialistMMA. That's my Twitter page. But progressive martial artists, as seen as a hoodie here, that's my YouTube. I usually post replays of my Twitch. That is also the progressive martial artists. I stream usually around this time, about 3-4 times a week. And you will see streams of the Fred Hampton podcast on there as well. The Fred Hampton podcast has its own page, the Fred Hampton podcast. But yeah, check me out on the Progressive Martial Arts YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, and sign up for my Substack as well, because I'm going to be continuing to release these great articles that you guys have been reading. And my main focus is on state violence and promoting leftist policy more than anything. My next thing I'm working on right now is defund the police. I talk about police abolition. You guys see how passionate I get about that, so I'm going to do an article. Maybe 2. I've been hard time to determine how long.
Well, you know what, man? You should do one on defund, and then you should do one on abolish, because it's like, you know, whenever people are like, I mean, and I'm sure you probably feel this way too. Whenever people are just like, well, I don't know about defund police, and I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, dude, defund the police is the first step. I'm actually an abolish the police guy too.
That's the point I'm making.
So we got to work you into it, folks. But we're not going to give up.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm making. That's what we advocate for in 10 demands, because like there's a road to abolition. That's the entire point of our group, and we gotta get the 10 demand done in order to transition to police abolition. So people always say, "Why you push defund the police? Do you not abolition?" Yeah, I'm for that, bro. Like we working towards that. That way you gotta advocate for defund police, advocate for all the things that are on 10 demands, and that's in the carceral. Like that's what we are on. We want to end the entire carceral punishment system. And then the prison industrial complex, like completely getting rid of all that. So we working on that, and that's what we got in the 10 demands, and that what you see on 10forjustice.com. So that's what my primary thing. Also, ranked choice voting, another one I'm going to do. I'm also on the board of National Ranked Choice Voting because I think I said this after Bernie Sanders dropped out. I'm like, this is our number one thing we should be worried about right now, because you saw how third parties got hit hard. I mean, you had the 2 worst candidates, 2 rapists, 2 war criminals, and the third party still got less than 1%. Green Party got like 0.4%. So if you're one of the people that say, rah, we got to have a third party, but you're not advocating for ranked choice voting, I'm sorry, you're a deeply unserious person too. So if you're not advocating or you're not fighting hard for ranked choice voting, that's something that you need to look into and you need to be focused on. So that's another piece I'm going to be working on. Shout out to my boy Mitch Randall, who started the organization, and look out and put a lot of work into ranked choice voting, because it's very important.
Absolutely, man. Well, you're a busy guy, and that's freaking awesome. Everybody follow Socialist MMA on Twitter to be in tune with all that stuff. And I can't wait to check out. I'm going to check out that podcast, man. I'm really excited to hear the Fred Hampton's Leftist podcast. And folks, I'll make a quick announcement too. Friday night, I got a show. It's a virtual show at Flappers Comedy Club in the Virtual Comedy Club. Lauren Ashcraft is going to be on that show too. She was on this show Monday. It's a stand-up show. She's going to be doing a set. I'm going to be doing a set. It starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, not 7 a.m. 7 p.m. Pacific, Friday night, the 26th. You can get tickets over at romplacone.com. And in the meantime, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check out all of Nick's stuff. We'll be back on Monday for an official Get Your News On with Ron stream. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow, and I say peace. Peace.